Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to learn how to design your typical household funnel used every day to pour liquids, just like the ones seen here. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is to come on up here and start a new design. Let's go ahead now and create a sketch here on our XY plane. I'm going to go ahead now and close out of my data panel to make my screen a little larger. I'm also going to come on up here to document settings and click on this little guy right here and change my units to millimeters. And the reason for that is because some of you may want to 3D print this. And for those of you who do 3D print, you know that everything is in millimeters in the metric system. So you won't have to convert your units between inches and millimeters if you want to 3D print this. All right, so let's go ahead now and start designing our first 2D sketch here. All right, so I'm going to kind of zoom out and move my screen over here so you guys can see better. So when you're designing parts or objects with a lot of symmetry, like a hollow tube or hollow axle or a hollow funnel in this case, you always want to place a construction line right down the middle. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to place a construction line that represents the center of our object. So I'm going to select construction line. I'm going to come up to line here, and I'm just going to draw a line that goes right down the middle. And remember, this line represents the exact center of our object going right down through the middle of the hollow portion. I'm going to hit escape to get me out of line mode. I'm going to take it off construction line mode. Now imagine, if you can, a funnel that you sliced right down the middle, all right? And that exposed face that you just cut, well, that represents the 2D profile sketch we're going to draw now. Once we draw that 2D profile, we're then going to revolve it around our center axis here. All right. So now let's go ahead and start drawing out the 2D profile. So I'm going to grab my line tool, and somewhere sort of in this area, we're going to draw out a rough sketch of that profile. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to come down. I'm going to come across. I'm going to come down over here, somewhere over here, and then I'm going to kind of do something like this. And then I'm going to start closing my loop. I'm going to come back across, come up, and then come back at roughly the same angle here. And then I'm going to come on up, and then I'm going to close my loop. So when you're done, this should be highlighted. Okay. Remember, you will not be able to extrude or do a revolve if you have any gaps in your lines. So now that we're finished with our 2D profile, I'm going to take it out of line mode. I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to start adding some vertical dimensions here and work my way down. I'm going to make that distance 3. I'm going to make from this line down to this point, let's make that 60. And then from this point down to the bottom of our funnel, we're going to make that 30. Now let's take it out of our sketch dimension tool here. I'm going to hit escape. And I want to add now some geometric constraints. I want to make sure these guys are parallel. So I'm going to click here and here, make sure that's parallel, make sure that one's parallel. Oh, and we get an error. So these are already parallel. We already added this parallel constraint when we drew it. So you may not have had that case. You may need to make these parallel. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit escape to take it out of my parallel constraint. So now let's come back to our sketch dimension tool, and I'm going to zoom in, and I want to dimension the thickness of our profile sketch here. I want it to be the same as up here, so 3. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to make it 3. So now that we have a nice uniform thickness of 3 millimeters for our profile, I'm going to go ahead now and add in some horizontal dimensions here. So from this dot to this dot, I want it to be that distance of 40. And then from this distance to this distance, as best you can, right there. I want that distance there to be 5. All right, so now we're going to dimension the radius of our funnel. And it's important to remember that this line, this construction line, represents a line that goes right down the middle of our funnel. And this distance from this point to our construction line, that represents the radius of our funnel. So let's go ahead and dimension it from here to here, and we want that distance to be 5. And if we did everything right, it should shift our 2D profile sketch over closer to our construction line. So let's do that, and it did. All right, so now we're going to dimension from here to here, and we want this distance to be 10. All right, and this flat surface up here will give you a nice flat surface to 3D print on. Okay, and now finally we're going to come back and we're going to use one more geometric constraint. We're going to make this guy horizontal with this point. Okay, I'm going to hit escape now to take it out of there. And that should do it for our 2D profile. Now, when you're done and everything looks fairly symmetrical in here, let's go ahead and finish our sketch. All right, and we're going to come on over here to Revolve tool. So click on that. Now notice it selects your profile for you. It highlights it blue for you. So Autodesk identified that for you. Now we got to select our axis. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to select my axis of rotation and I'm going to click right there and hit OK. Looks pretty good. All right, and so for those of you who really like to organize stuff, we're going to add one more little feature here on the top of it. We're going to start a sketch right here so we can hang our funnel from a pegboard or something like that. All right, so we're going to start a sketch. We're going to come on over here to our circle tool. We're just going to click there. And right here, we're just going to drag out a circle of 30 millimeters wide. We're going to drag out another circle of 20 millimeters wide in diameter, I should say. And then we're going to come on over here to create and down to project. And we're going to click on this line right here. So this will essentially create a line for us on our drawing plane. Okay, so project will bring this line onto our drawing surface so we don't have to draw it out. And then we're going to come to trim and we're just going to get rid of these other guys. Okay. And now that we're done, let's hit escape and let's finish our sketch. And now we're just going to extrude that guy right here the other way, a distance of -3 millimeters. Hit OK. Okay, and there is our really cool funnel. All right, so the last thing you should do with every part is if you're 3D printing it, a lot of things 3D print with ABS, so I'm going to go to modify. I'm going to give it a material here, and I'm going to select plastic, and I'm just going to drag my ABS out there. All right, and now I am going to give it a color. So we're going to go to modify, appearance, give it a cool yellow color here. Go ahead and hit close. And when you're all finished, make sure you save your part. We'll call it funnel 2 for me because I already made one here. So save it. And then if you are curious, if you click on document settings and you come over here to properties, you'll see the weight of your funnel, the density and the area and the volume and all these great physical properties of your funnel. All right. All right, I hope you learned something. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.